I used to work at Disney World for actually quite a few years, until I ended up getting fired, which actually kinda directly ties into what I want to tell you about here. I don't expect to be believed, but at least let me tell the entire story before you shit up the thread and call me an idiot. So I worked as a mechanic for Disney, and ended up fixing up all manner of rides. Usually, these would be quick fixes here and there, like resetting sensors, or sorting out a stuck lap bar and the like. Typically, we do not work on any rides during the day because Disney puts great importance on keeping the magic alive, and so anything that would take more than a few minutes and more than just one person is reserved for after hours when every single guest has left. If you do ever have to make any fixes during the day, they usually just shove a few cast members outside to direct people away for a little while and distract them, and that usually buys you the few minutes that you need. This happened to me after hours though. The park had been closed for quite a few hours when I signed in at the maintenance bay. I think it was just routine maintenance or something, which absolutely no one else wanted to do, so I got stuck with it. Most other people had gone home by this point. I'm not gonna make a big song and dance about, "Ooh, Disney is so creepy at night," because it's not really. It's lit up like a damn Christmas tree, and I knew most every place inside out anyway. Sure, you have those shitty campfire tales that go around about spirits haunting certain rides and whatnot, but I never paid them any mind. Shit like that has never scared me. Plus, I was working on Tomorrowland, which is an outdated pile of junk that no one really cares about by this point. Most guests might make a quick stop on the first day, just to say they've done it, but I have never seen anyone come back for more, Lamau. So it was routine maintenance, but my boss did mention that the car did stall once or twice that day, but not for very long. Said that they had taken a look and sorted it out, but that it was just a patch-up job. I swear, this ride never goes a single day without a problem. So, after I signed in, I checked out my toolkit and made sure to go over my checklist for the night. I did not want to get ahead of myself and miss anything. Disney is super strict about cleaning policies and how you operate. I am not even exaggerating. They make you use products from a pre-approved list, and you have to follow guidelines to the letter. It can be a pain in the ass sometimes, but that is usually all. I made sure to put some gloves on and grab my flashlight and headed over to the ride. I don't want to bore you with all of the maintenance stuff. I'm sure you're all tired enough of your own jobs and don't want to hear about mine. I will just say that shit was not a quick fix, and by all accounts, I should have had at least one extra pair of hands helping me. I had to get underneath the tracks and shit. It was so annoying. Anyway, sometime around this point, I noticed something weird underneath the tracks. Now, don't get me wrong, I think most rides like this have some sort of maintenance hatch underneath them, but this one was not one I had noticed before. I mean, how is that possible? How did I notice it? Something earlier in the day must have happened, but I noticed that there was a patch of paint completely chipped off. Before that, it had been painted a different color and smoothed over and buffed out to make it blend in. There was no kind of handle or any indicator of it being there on the outside. If you didn't know it existed, then you would never find it. Again, you would not be able to get anywhere near this thing during the day due to the ride being in use and how you would have to get to it. I got curious, so I went over to it and got down to try and inspect it. It was near the edge of the tracks and blended in so well. There was also bits of rock and shit crushed up and spread over the top. It would have looked out of place if it was any closer, but that kind of stuff is used a lot out of the park. There was a security guy doing the rounds not too far away from me, so I gave him a shout on the radio. I was like, "Hey, you know of any other maintenance hatches near this ride, or what it's for, blah blah blah." He was not very helpful. He was a relatively new hire, and I don't think his English was the best, so he just told me it was probably an old one, not used anymore or something. I knew that it definitely wasn't, otherwise I would have used it in the past. It seemed weird that he was so quick to come up with an answer though. Anyway, you can call me stupid or an idiot or whatever, but the rest of my work was done, and I mean, hey, What kind of maintenance man would I be if I did not check the quality of my work and inspect the hatches that I am supposed to use? I had the perfect cover. Oh, sorry boss, it just looked like the other ones. What can I say? I'm a real curious George. Like I said, this was not like any other maintenance hatch on the park. They are supposed to be accessed very quickly, in and out, so you don't get spotted by some starry-eyed kid. There's supposed to be a recessed handle or a key lock, but this one had none of them. I actually had to get a pry bar just to lift this thing up. It smelled really bad the second the air from it came into contact with my nose. It smelled like week old farts and sewage. The width of the opening was really small. I'm not a big guy by any means, and it felt like I had to hold my breath and suck my stomach in just to not get trapped. There was kind of a makeshift ladder type thing where each step is embedded into the wall. I climbed down for I don't even know how long. I made sure to put the cover back over as I did, just in case some idiot fell into it, or someone noticed and I got into trouble. Probably a big mistake. Looking back, I should have told the security guard, but maybe he would have just stopped me instead of being a witness for me. Anyway, so maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes straight of climbing down. This seemed like it went down even below the utilidors that are used around the park, which is not right at all. In front of me was this really thin kind of passage. The walls were not constructed or anything, it was just pure rock. And to get through, you had to squeeze your body through like you're in one of those caves. I felt like the nutty putty guy, and I will admit that for a second or two, I thought about just leaving. Still though, I thought that this surely must be a huge violation of regulations, even if the hatch was technically hidden and not meant to be used. If I did not figure out the extent of it and report it, and something ever happens, then it's my ass on the line. So I shuffled my way through this narrow passage for a while. The smell was even worse down here. Pure sewage smell. The ground was also really damp and a little bit slippy. I guess it was just the buildup of moisture or something. Thinking back on it, this place seemed more like those catacombs in Paris that you read about. Once I shuffled through for a while, the rock walls expanded and made it so I could at least move and breathe at the same time. Speaking of breathing, the air down here was hard to breathe. It felt thicker than usual. It felt like I was trying to breathe while underneath my bed covers. It's really strange because after a certain point, I didn't even really need my flashlight anymore. Someone had taken the time to set torches up on the wall after every so often, and they were lit. These were actively burning. I'm no expert on how fire or torches work, but I'm pretty sure that's not possible unless someone had done it pretty recently. And now I was shitting my pants, because what if there were some intruders who had stayed in the park overnight and knew about this place? What if they were waiting for their chance to just shoot back up and cause trouble? My radio did not work down there, so my options were 1, squeeze back and go and get help, or 2, go further, as quietly as I could, and maybe try to get some evidence. I did not really want to turn back now. If I am being honest, the thought of squeezing back through the way I came made me feel queasy, and I wanted to delay it for as long as possible, so I just kept on walking. It was almost like a maze in this place. I don't know how it was possible to have tunnels like this. I wondered what it had been used for in the past, because there were symbols and markers and things painted on the wall. No way this place was a maintenance hatch though. The symbols did not make any sense to me. It would have been nice if someone painted a big red arrow for me, but it was mostly just different shapes. You know those weird shapes you see, where it's like a million of them shoved into one. Stuff like that. I can't remember the word for it, but I'm pretty sure I learned it in class at one point. I'm not sure if they had a rhyme or a reason to them. They just seemed to appear randomly after making a turn, or walking into a straight line for a while. Here is where my story becomes even harder to believe, if that's even possible. I know it's already batshit insane sounding, but that's okay. I just need it off my chest. There was this little space between one of the walls and the corridor, like the rock wall was pushed back and recessed in to form a small space that you can stand underneath. I mean, there was a few of these, but this one made me shit my pants. There were bones in there. When I saw them, I literally squealed, fell on my ass, and crawled backwards. I don't know how old these things were, or if they were even real. I did not stop to check. I didn't really have time because I could actually hear talking now. It was super faint and sounded quite whispery, but I heard the slight echo of it, so I moved toward it. There were other bones, and I even saw a skull propped up in a corner. I just told myself that they were old decorations that were maybe going to be for a spooky ride, but were scrapped because they looked too real. Once I got far enough, I got to a section that actually did seem carved out, like manually, by a person. The rock walls were still mostly there, but then gave way to actual concrete walls. This is where the whispering was coming from. There was a turn at the end, and so I made my way down and slowly peeked my head around. I almost could not believe what my eyes showed me, but I know for a fact I saw it. It doesn't matter how much I try and forget it, or repress it, or pretend I didn't know. I saw it. There was some kind of chamber. I'm not sure how to describe it. It was just this big spacious section that looked to have fully concrete walls. It was a complete dead end as far as I could see, aside from what looked to be a tiny opening in the concrete wall that you could maybe crawl under at the far side. In the middle of this chamber or whatever, there was something in the middle. It looked like a bed but made out of stone. It wasn't massive or anything, but there was something on top of it, and there were people standing around it. I had to grab my own mouth with my hands in order to stop myself from panicking and crying out loud. I just watched. I was frozen in place, and that was all I could do. I was outnumbered. There were 4 of them standing around this thing, and they did not look like teenagers either. The thing on the stone bed or whatever, it was some kind of costume, but I think that there was someone inside of it. I did not recognize the character, but whatever it was, the person inside of it was quite short. I think it had a beard or something, maybe one of the 7 dwarves. I don't know. It didn't really look like them though. Either way, I could tell a person was inside because the costume was not flat or anything, like when you would lay it out on a table. It looked brand new though. I have no idea why it would be down here, but that was not the only thing. The costume, where the arms were, where the legs were, where the neck was, it was tied down. There was just coils of rope that were affixing this costume person to the stone bed by the arms, the neck, and the legs. It looked really painful, especially the neck one. If not for the costume, I can't imagine how much that would hurt. The 4 people that were standing around were dressed so strangely. They were all wearing costumes that you would find around the park. Things like Mickey, Donald, Goofy, etc. But they looked so dirty. They looked like they had put the costume on and then rolled around in mud and let it just sit for a long time. They also had these other deep and dark stains on them. I could not make out what they were, but they made me feel sick. If you looked at the eyes of the head, you could see that there was mold baked into where the whites of the eyes were, to the point that there were no whites left. It wasn't just the costumes that were off though, because they were wearing something over them. They were not massive, but they looked like some kind of red robes. They were not floor length or anything like that, but they covered a little bit. These robes looked pristine, however, not a speck of dirt on them. The stench was worse. I imagine it was coming from these costumes. The costumes also had bits of damage, what looked to be tiny bits of fabric missing near the hands and arms, and what looked like some kind of scorch marks. Again, I was frozen. All I could do was watch. I still did not really want to squeeze back through, and I thought that trying to move now, they would hear me for sure, and I would be screwed. So I watched as they all stepped away and pulled something out of a little satchel down on the ground, one by one. They were pulling out what I can only describe as some kind of dagger. They looked really ornate though. They had a long point and didn't look like the usual stainless steel stuff that you can buy. They looked expensive, handcrafted. After removing them from the satchel, I saw them return to where they were standing when I first saw them. They were holding the daggers facing upwards and resting against where chest height would be if you weren't wearing a stupid costume. And they started whispering something. I could not make it out. It was faint and the costumes muffled it. Then they started to walk sideways in a circle. They circled the tied-down costume for a little while, and then I saw one of them jab the damn dagger into the costume. I don't know how thick these costumes are, but there is no way that dagger did not pierce flesh if there was someone inside. It was aimed somewhere at the lower body, and I heard the connection. Shit. Being that close, I felt the phantom pain of being stabbed. That is how visceral it was. The person tied down in the costume did not react or make a sound or make any attempt to struggle. I half wondered if maybe they were already, dead. That maybe this was just some sick game after the fact. They continued circling until they had all stabbed their daggers in as deep as they would go. After that, I saw one of them pull a lit torch off of the wall, and then he just set the costume on the stone bed on fire. Even to this day, I hope maybe that it was just a costume with no person inside. I really do not want to believe that I saw someone set on fire. At the very least, if there was a person inside there, I hope they were already dead. After standing and watching it burn, which, by the way, smelled horrible. It smelled really rotten, and I had to hold my breath so that I did not cough up a lung and give away that I was there. They all left. But none of them left in the same direction. I already noticed the tiny little passage that you would have to crawl through at the other end. That was not the only one. They each went to a different part of the room and removed some kind of little hatch that concealed another way that you could crawl through. One of them even went upwards, which made me shiver. The second that none of them were in my sights anymore, I ran as fast as I possibly could back to where I had come from, and I just closed my eyes once I got to the narrow portion. I just had to suck it up and pretend that I wasn't squeezing through a narrow space. I had to get the hell out of there. The second I got up out of the hatch, I ran full sprint towards the security guard I talked to earlier. I just vomited words at him. I did not even let myself catch my breath. He had to keep telling me to slow down, and once I did finally get out what I wanted to tell him, he waved me away. I asked him to come and look, and that there were people under there, and he just pretended like he did not understand and signaled with his hands for me to shoo. What an asshole. So I took it out with my boss. The second I could sit down with him in a room on a different day, I told him absolutely everything, and the reaction was not at all what I was expecting. He was angry, really, really angry. He went off on this long and shouting rant about how I'm some good-for-nothing drunk who shirks his work. That instead of doing my job, I started poking my nose into restricted areas, and that I was so drunk I made something up that I did not really say. He told me that my story was ridiculous and unbelievable, and that I was fired effective immediately for bringing the reputation of Disney and the theme park into disrepute. I tried to argue, but he would not hear it. He went on and on about how I was snooping and looking for problems where there are none. He accused me of being some kind of plant for a new organization to get dirt or find parts of the park that were not up to code. I mean, are you serious? I had worked there for years. And the drunk thing was out of nowhere too. Let me tell you, I almost never drink. Drinking on your own is sad, and I never really liked the taste. I got drunk at one Christmas party years ago, which I wasn't even going to go to. I had like 2 drinks and was blasted because I was not used to drinking at all. And okay, yes, I made a fool of myself, but that was it. Never ever has my boss even seen me take a sip of alcohol. Before this, my boss had never done anything but praise me for my work. We got along pretty well, or at least I thought so. I don't know what the hell I did. Surely he would want to know about something as major as this underneath the park and start an investigation, right? So, yeah, that brings me to now. It's been a few years since that happened, and I was let go of. Never heard anything about any kind of investigation, but they tend to keep those things hidden and in-house. I have no idea what I really saw, or what any of it means. Just please tell me I'm not losing my mind. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I was 16 years old at the time that this one happened. I was exploring the woods on the north side of the property. If you go far enough along, there is an old Soviet building. It's not quite a bunker, but it is sunk into the ground. It has a thick concrete dome, sort of like an igloo. My father said it was a Munitions Depot, but to be honest, he was a drunk and probably fooling. There is a big rusted iron door that is open, but stuck in the same position. We decided to go inside. I had seen it before, but never went inside. Inside, it stinks really bad. I recognized the smell of iron from before with the dogs. I instantly understood it as blood and rotted produce. There is an old mattress on the floor, the kind with no springs and just cotton. There was lots of blankets and sheets. Everything is covered in mud and maybe some kind of grease. There are cans laying everywhere. There is a little spot for a fire with a mesh grill and cement blocks in a circle. There is graffiti all over the walls in different color paints. There are some religious symbols like Orthodox crosses, pentagrams, and the Islamic moon. I don't know what it's called. I feel sort of sick. It's a lot to take in. After all, this is set in peace near my home all this time. The longer I look, the more I notice. Animal bones, small things like rabbit, but a few things like antlers. There are some carcasses and skins, parts of dogs laying around. I understand now what the meat on the mesh grill is. It is charred black like it was just left. No fire though, no heat or smell of smoke. Probably there for a day or two. I back out. I have to turn and kind of shift for the space of the door. When I peek my head around, I think I see a person's head duck from the ridge of the hill. He had dirty brown clumped hair like dreadlocks and a big beard. There was dirt all over his face. This person has been living out here, hunting dogs and huffing paint. That's what I thought. I leave in a hurry. I don't even check to see if what I saw was real. I tell my family. My father calls the police. They ask if it is on our property. He tells them no. They basically say if he is not trespassing or bothering anyone, they will not consider it priority at this time. We just have to sort of accept that there is a crazed vagrant in the woods, probably a 30-minute walk away. Life goes on normally for a few days. I am outside feeding our pigs and getting their shelter ready for winter. I look past our fence to the tree line and spot him. It looks to be the same person. He is wearing what looks like a tarp or maybe a trash bag with holes cut out for his arms and legs. He is far away, but I'm pretty sure he was wearing several pairs of pants. It looked really puffed out and baggy. The outer ones were ripped, and I could see different cloth. He's just kind of standing there. I don't really know what to do, and we look at each other for a minute. He goes back into the trees. My heart is pounding. I go back inside and get my father's rifle. I am home alone today, so I sit by the windows and listen to the radio. The rest of my family got home later. I am helping move all the groceries from our truck into the house. Who is that over there? My mother says. I have not said anything about him yet, because it's all just really weird. Instantly, I am nervous. I look where she is pointing, and there he is. My father waves and yells a greeting. The man in the woods does nothing, starts walking along the tree line. I tell them I saw him earlier. Tell them he is the man I saw from the building. We all go inside. We don't bother calling the police because he was technically not on our property. We have a few dogs of our own. I did not want them to get hurt by him, so I kept them inside that night. I get woken up very early that morning, before dawn. My father is pissed. He went out early because all of the dogs were restless. He regularly wakes up at around 4 a.m., so this was not strange. He tells me that 2 of our pigs are missing and that our barbed wire has been cut. We both know who the culprit is. He has gone too far. We get the dogs, get the rifles. Father calls his brother, so he drives over. We head into the woods as the sun is still rising. We make the hike to the building. It is fall. It is that dead silence again. The area is thick with trees and it's a cloudy day. It's still really dark outside. We reach the building. We can smell that stink of shit and blood again. We quietly approach. The dogs are okay, but they are really nervous. They smelled it before we did, of course. My uncle and I stand on either side of the steps to the big door. My father is in front in the middle. He shouts to ask if anybody is there, but of course, we get no answer. We go inside. It's the same as before mostly, only this time, we see one of our pigs. He is on the floor on his side, with a trash bag over his face. He is not stuck or cut. He was simply smothered by the bag. The pig had shit all over the floor when it died. It seemed that no effort was made to clean it thus far. We leave the building. All three of us circle around. We are looking down the hill towards the trees, trying to spot him. My uncle shouts. He sees someone in the trees. We go to where he is standing. I see something, flesh-colored, standing about with arms and legs stretched out. It looks off, but I cannot place it. We go downhill. It is our sow. She is strung up by her legs. They are pulled out between two trees like she is going to be gutted. She has a crown of brambles on her head. There are swastikas, pentagrams, curse words cut into her skin all over. The skin from her face has been peeled off. There is spray paint all over where its face once was. There are 2 Orthodox crosses carved into the 2 trees. We are all very freaked out by this chaos. My uncle says he is going to puke. We book it back up the hill, keeping an eye out. We are not so rough and ready anymore. If we had tails, they would have been between our legs all the way home. After that, everything is quiet again. We fixed our fence, and I kept a strong lookout for a few weeks. We did not see him anymore. Still, we were all really freaked out that this guy was out there and that he knew where we live. We made rules that brother could not be outside alone. Me and father usually took a rifle and leaned it on something, knew where we were working on, from then on. We made a show for the first few days of going outside and shooting. We wanted to let him know that if he was around, that we were armed and could defend ourselves if we needed to. Like I said, we never saw him again. For years though, things would go missing from our shed, and our neighbors talked about things going missing as well. Things like spray paint, gardening tools. We had a big deep freezer in our shed that we kept game that we had hunted inside of it. One time, we discovered a large chunk of gnawed-upon deer on the ground. Whoever did it had to have been chewing on it while it was frozen. We also found a sneaker in our yard with spray paint all inside of it, like it had been used for huffing. So, I have always been the awkward duck of my family, if you can call it that. My mom, my dad, and my older brother and sister go on a trip to Disneyland and California without me. I can't go because I am stuck in summer school for failing math and English. They come back after about a week. At least once a month, they start having parties in the house. The basement is always locked now, which is where my NES was. They put it in my room, which was amazing for an 11-year-old, or however old I was at the time, so I did not mind too much. This goes on for about a year. I'm just used to it now. I am just hanging out upstairs, playing Castlevania or Mario. They say they are sending me to a sleepover camp as recompense for the missed trip last year, since my grades are good now. It's not the same as Disney, but it's got canoeing, camping, archery, clay pigeon shooting, etc. I go and have a great time. My uncle meets me instead when I get back home. My entire house except my room is just empty. They left a note telling me that I should go and live with my uncle next door since they could not be there anymore. My uncle just never talks about it. The police can't turn up shit, or likely, they never even bother trying to find them. I cannot ever track them down, still to this day. I don't know where my parents went. TLDR. I think my parents joined a cult, abandoned me, and then skipped town. Here is a fun one that's a bit more paranormal. I was about 3 to 6 years old. My grandfather died the day that I was supposed to be born. According to my mom, I would constantly tell her stories that I would start with, "When I was your dad," and then apparently, I would rattle off facts that I had no way of knowing. Names of her childhood dogs, stories from when he was in court, facing perjury charges, etc. Then, when I was around 6 years old, my family was going through a rough patch financially. I am just a normal, hyperactive child. Suddenly, I stop what I am doing, and my eyes roll back in my head. I start repeating numbers. Everyone freaked out. Later, Grandma has a dream. My grandfather appears and tells her to stop being stupid. Play the numbers! She uses the numbers I kept repeating and wins $10,000. No more financial problems. What a fucking load of shit, bro. You didn't even try with that one.